Hello friends, today I'll be making Usagi Tsukino from Sailor Moon. If you enjoy the video, please give me a like and consider subscribing. Thanks in advance. I prepped this Dracula doll quite a while ago from a different project, but I didn't do a great job and there's still glue in her head, which mostly won't come out. Some of the paint wouldn't come off either. I have this problem quite a lot with Dracula, so I'm just going to give her another once over with acetone. And then of course wash her with soapy water. There are a lot of Sailor Moon dolls over the internet, and today I'm going to make the doll that I want to own. So I'm giving her bright yellow anime hair. I'll talk a bit more about the choices I've made later on in the video. So right now I'm giving her 2 coats of yellow acrylic paint on her scalp. Because Usagi wears her hair up, I don't need to totally reroute. So I'm just going to go around the hairline and the parting. I tried a drill truck like Delightful use, but I found it quite painful because of the difference in how you hold it. So I'm just going to stick with my X-Acto knife. So here is the way that I rerouted her. I've tied off her fringe already just to keep it separate. So you can see that it's parted there, and then in the middle there are some big gaps that I didn't bother rerouting. I know at some point I got a pencil eraser stuck in her head, and I guess I'm trying to remove it now, but it doesn't make any sense to me because I haven't sprayed her yet. So most doll artists will put the head on a stick to spray it with whatever we're spraying, but I haven't started spraying, so why is there stuff stuck in her head? I don't know. I had some issues with the reroute. I've had this problem with my last Dracula repaint. Her parting split, so it could have been something to do with that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just using a rubber cement here to glue the hair into her head. This is a slower drying glue than Fabri-Tac, but still quite quick drying. And I'm just using a Q-tip to smush it around and make sure it touches all the hair on the inside of the head. So there it says fast drying. This is how I made the shirt. As usual, I made a pattern with masking tape and then drew with a graphite pencil onto white cotton and then put glue around the edges. I'm sewing the shoulder seams first and then ironing those open flat. I heard recently that ironing is 50% of a garment, and I completely agree. You know, I'm all about ironing with hair straighteners. I gathered the shoulder of the sleeve a little bit. I'm sorry this is hard to see. I put white clothes on white paper, well done. So, and then pinned it to sew it into the arm's eye. This is the actual sewing speed that I use when I'm sewing a sleeve, so never be too worried about sewing slowly. I made the pleated skirt by cutting a piece of fabric 3 times the amount I wanted, plus 1 triple pleat plus the seam allowance. It sounds confusing. It is a little bit confusing, and I tend to make it too small. So this curved piece is the waistband, which I made a pattern for using masking tape as usual, and this will be the bow for the back of her skirt. I hand sewed the back of the skirt. I actually hemmed the skirt before I even ironed the pleats in. When you make a pleated skirt, this is probably the easiest way to do it. It's how I make a human-sized pleated skirt as well. So here's that waistband again. I'm just going to hem the top and sides of it using a blind hem stitch. I'm re-ironing the pleats in just before I add that waistband because the pleats need to be perfect because they'll be sewn down again. There's no going back from here. I pinned this right sides together and then ran it under my sewing machine. I find this so satisfying, turning it the right way out. So I checked that it fit Abby, who's become my mannequin doll. Then I made the bow If you want a tutorial on this, let me know. It's a little bit hard to see here. I'm gluing the edges. These two little shorter pieces will be the ends, and then this longer piece I'm stitching into kind of a tube, then doing a gather stitch over those stitches between both sides, like pressing it flat so that bit I've sewn is in the middle, and then I wrap the thread around it. It's not in focus either, sorry about that. And then I tie it off and then add those two little square bits to make the tails. Then I added snaps to the back of the skirt. I checked on Abby the fit so that I knew where both of the snaps wanted to be. Usually I try and be really neat with the snaps, but this time it actually doesn't matter because that ribbon is going straight over the outside snap. Using masking tape that has constellations on it, I'm making a pattern for her sailor collar. I'm actually only making half, and then I'm going to stick it onto some paper on a fold so that it'll make double. If you do this over cloth, then you don't need to do anything like cling film maybe a doll, and then you stick it straight to paper. It's super easy. So as usual, then I'm drawing around it on the fabric, then drawing on the top of those with glue, and then cutting it out. This time, because it's such a tiny piece, I'm doing it while the glue is wet, using not nice scissors, not my dressmaking scissors, and folding those edges, and then using my hair straightener immediately because it, like, the heat will set that glue and make a really crisp edge. So here I'm just making a little tube to make cuffs for the shirt. So either you've been shouting at the camera that I've gotten all the clothes the wrong colour, or you've realised that actually I'm making her school seifuku. I'll talk about this a little bit more while I'm doing the face up. So this is a scrap of fabric that I had to make the ribbon on the front, and then here I'm making her transformation brooch. I'm just using a flat back pearl that I had and a Prismacolor pen, and then this is some Mr. Hobby paint that I've thinned with a little bit of air brush thinner, and then very patiently I tried to paint the transformation brooch. I later went and had a look at some of the other artists that have done Sailormoon and what they did for her brooch, and they've just done pearls, and to be fair, this is a little bit extra, but I love so much how it turned out. So I realised these buttons that I bought a while back were just perfect size for the extra little circles, and using polygel, I'm attaching them to the back of the flat back pearl and then setting them with my UV, just a little poke to get it inside. It was really fiddly, but definitely worth it, and then schlump to get it back out. Oh, and magically all four are on there, not because I accidentally cut out a piece of footage. I love this. This is just so cute. Look at it. Just because I had it out, I used some clear UV nail gel to make sure she's super shiny. So I'd already made some socks for her, and then this is how I made the shoes. I cut out the shape of the sole and then cut that onto Warbler. This time I did make sure to wrap her legs in cling film, and then I lost the footage, so here's me petting Spock. Basically I used my hair straighteners to heat up the Warbler because at some point I broke my hair dryer during this make, so I need to replace that, and then did the sole, the toe cap and the heel with Warbler. And then using a piece of chopstick like I always do, I made the heel, which I stuck on with hot glue. I sanded down the front of the shoes because they were quite bumpy, and then I tried to paint them, but they looked absolutely horrifying, so there was just way too much texture. I decided that I needed to make it smoother, so I used white putty from Mr. Hobby and gave it 2 coats of that, and considered using a primer as well, but didn't in the end. Once this had dried, I gave them a good sanding. I used 100, 180 and 240 grit nail buffers and sanders. When doll artists say just use a buffing block, they probably mean a 240, and it was so much better. I painted the soles in tan, and then I painted the uppers in black. To prep the doll, I sprayed her using my airbrush with a mixture of white flesh and light flesh from Vallejo. Flesh is very, very orange, so I needed to bring that down lighter a bit. I wanted to give her really giant anime eyes. I didn't even think twice about doing it in my style. It was just she needed to have big anime eyes, and when you're over drawing eyes, it can be quite a challenge. So I went in, drew them, erased them, drew again. So in between doing the face up, I want to tell you why I decided to do my Usagi this way. So I love Sailormoon. I think most doll artists love Sailormoon, so many people do. And like loads of people, I started watching Sailormoon when I was really, really young. And I really kind of related to the character of Usagi. I think I watched the English dub, so she was called Serena in that one. Recently I've been watching Sailormoon Crystal, and because I've been in Japan so long, I couldn't really remember the English dub names, but even in Crystal now with the dub, they don't change their names, which I think is pretty cool. But I guess back then there weren't really many animes on TV, so there was like Pokemon, and Satoshi was translated to Ash. But I was talking to my friend about the names in the English dub as well. So Serena is of the moon, but like Usagi means rabbit, like, which I think is obviously to do with her hair. So I thought it would have been cuter if she was called Bunny. But Tsukino, like, there's the character for moon, and then I think the no is field. So like Moonfield, and then Ami's name is Mizuno, so like Waterfield, kind of. I think that's really cute. And Mamoru is translated to Darien, and Mamoru means to protect, and then apparently Darien also means to protect. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, so I related to Usagi because she's just an absolute mess. Like, I love the first episode in both of the animes actually. So I tried watching the original again, and it's not an easy watch just because it's so much of the same thing. It's like Monster of the Week over and over again, but they're 15-minute shows, and at least 5 of those minutes is transformation, so there's not much going on. And because I speak Japanese now and I have more experience with the culture, I get more of the jokes, which I find quite fun. So yeah, I've been watching Crystal, and I still love her in Crystal. Quite a lot of people don't like Sailormoon Crystal, I think. They said it felt rushed, but I didn't mind that so much because trying to rewatch it with the Monster of the Week format in a 15-minute show is just too much. It's too dull. So I think one of the reasons that Sailor Moon is so popular is that we didn't have anything like this at all before it came over. Like, they're these teenage girls that have normal teenage lives, but they're also magical, and they're still feminine, and they're still goofy. And like with a lot of animes, the main character is an underdog. They're not very good at anything. Like, Ash is not a good Pokemon catcher, and Usagi is a giant goofball and just clumsy AF. So again, why I wanted to do Usagi rather than Sailor Moon. A couple of years ago for Halloween, I dressed up as Sailor Moon. Insert picture here. So that kind of fulfilled my Usagi dream a little bit. Dolls kind of took over my need to cosplay. Like in Japan, believe it or not, there aren't many opportunities to cosplay, and I personally don't have anyone to do it with, and I'd rather do it with a group of people than on my own. Also, there are so many really stunning Sailor Moon dolls already on YouTube and Instagram. I just didn't feel like I needed to do one. To be fair though, I'd always kind of wanted a Sailor Moon doll, but like if you've seen the official Sailor Moon dolls, they're absolutely horrifying. Like Nika-chan, I don't think she's that cute, but the Sailor Moon dolls are awful. They're like super expensive as well. They're about $30. But yeah, so she was totally shelved until I was in Umeda Station, just wandering around looking at the gacha machines, because the little toys in there are usually 1/6 scale, and there was one with these little bento boxes in. So I had a gacha and I got this little bento, and it reminded me of like one of my favourite episodes of Sailor Moon when she's sharing lunch with Makoto. I still really love that episode. I just watched it recently, the crystal one, and it's so adorable. It makes me laugh. Just the bit where Mako says that she can share, and then Usagi's like, Ina! Like just how she's, like her stupid voice. I love it so much. Is it really okay? Oh, but I shouldn't. Makes me laugh. So anyway, yeah, I love that part of Usagi's character, that she just loves snacks and eating, because I relate. And then yeah, that little bit of the episode. So that made me decide that I wanted to do an Usagi Tsukino version of Sailor Moon. So I was still trying to figure out why Sailor Moon exploded the way it did. And I was talking to a bud, and they said they thought it was because it was the first magical girl anime, or they'd heard that, and that's not the case by far. Like there are quite a lot of magical girl animes and mangas that are 20-30 years older. Like the prototype, they say, for the genre was in the 50s, and so Sailor Moon is 90s. But I think what Sailor Moon did was it added like the henshin aspect. It added that the costume change. And so I was reading online, I'll put my links below, but it was saying like how with other shows like Power Rangers, for example, when they did their transformation, they would become stronger. Or like there's a show called Kamen Rider, and they become stronger or like armored. But when they change in Sailor Moon, they become hyper feminine and like very scantily clad. But they're still strong. I don't know if that was what did it for us. Like we had no choice of like whether we saw earlier animes. Like apparently the earliest anime to be translated was Astro Boy. I didn't see that. I did see Pokemon, but not often, because I think it was on a time on TV that wasn't great to be able to watch. Sailor Moon, I had to wake up at something like 5 a.m. to catch. The story's just, it's got everything, man. Like everything a teenage girl needs. Like there's the star-crossed lovers, and then it's just full of love. There's the friendship love all the time, and the main five are super cute. I always thought like Mars in her Shrine Maiden outfit was super cool as well, and then Mako, she's like got a really strong character. one thing that I always remember was Sailor Moon. So when I first came to Japan, I was an exchange student. Like, I couldn't sing any Japanese songs at karaoke, but one of the lads knew I liked Ghibli films and I liked Sailor Moon, so he sat with me and helped me learn all the lyrics for Moonlight Densetsu, which I still to this day will sing in karaoke, like, every time I go, even though that's not the current theme song for Sailor Moon, but I do know that one too now. But so this guy was the same age as me, but Sailor Moon would have been available when he was about 6, but he wasn't allowed to watch it. And I was like, what? Why? Sailor Moon's amazing. It's like a kids show. And he was like, no, I couldn't watch it because you see them naked. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, you see them naked. I was like, no, you don't. And literally, I only very, very recently found out why he said you saw them naked and I thought you didn't. Because, like, some things were changed when it was brought over. The notorious one is the lesbians being cousins, you know. But actually, in the transformation scene, in the Japanese version, they have, like, under boob lines and butt cheek lines and, like, back dimple lines. So it is more suggestive. But I don't know which one I think is weirder. Mothers not letting their sons watch Sailor Moon because of, like, 3 lines suggesting the idea maybe of nudity, possibly, or the person that drew those lines. Like, I can't decide which is weirder. I think it's all quite funny though. I hope I haven't missed anything important during the face up. Just been chatting about Sailor Moon. I was looking at reference while I was doing this, but obviously with an anime character there is no blushing, and I love blushing, so I tried to do the eyes in an anime way, but other things I kind of thought about Japanese makeup a little bit, and just things I generally like in dolls. So I always like that little bit of forehead blushing and chin and nose blushing. And then a thing with Japanese makeup that I really love is, like, having kind of is it like a bitten lip look, I think, with just, like, a bit rosy in the middle and then kind of pale, which kind of makes her look a bit pouty, but I think it's quite cute. So all of you Sailor Moon fans, let me know in the comments, like, why you love Sailor Moon so much. I don't know, I can never put my finger on it, but I do love Sailor Moon. I'm not sure if at my current company we're allowed to dress up at Halloween, but if we are, I've kind of convinced my co-teachers to dress up with me. So I've already got the Usagi costume that I made, and so that little piece of red fabric that I was using to make the bow earlier, that's, like, the only tiniest leftover shred that I have from the bow from my Sailor Moon costume. And, like, obviously all the fabric shops are closed at the moment, aren't they? So even if I wanted to buy more, I couldn't. But yeah, so I want to be Sailor Moon, and then I want my co-teacher to be Takushido Kamen, and then the other one to be Chibiusa. I think it'd be really, really fun. I think I did a reasonable job of staying in frame and in focus in this one. I was told to put the head on, like, an epoxy sculpt pot, but I don't know where mine is, so this is just gesso, I think. And then I realised I need to make sure that the workspace is as clear as possible, so I think that's why I have some other things that are not in focus. So sorry about that, but I do think I'm improving, and that was one of my goals for 2020. So, like, oh my goodness, we're a quarter of the way into 2020. I think we're all ready for it to be over. What a weird year. It doesn't even feel like the year where the world was literally on fire. Can you remember Australia was like on fire? And then, oh my gosh, there was that article about about UFOs, and I was like, well, if it's gonna happen, it'll be in 2020. So I'm just using a dotting tool and some paint to kind of make those highlights a bit stronger. I had some issues pulling out the pins, and I don't know why this was. Notice this pin, foreshadowing. When you're changing the colour of a doll, you have to spray their hair a little bit, otherwise you end up with bits that aren't covered, but you can get that paint out by just scratching it. So I'm just parting the hair here, and you can see that I didn't get the parting great. I think partly because I had that issue with it splitting. So I'm just going to add some more hair along the hairline, just tying it off, and then just adding a couple more plugs. The only issue is that there's that pencil eraser in there, so I'm a little bit worried that I won't be able to get the glue in there properly to hold it in, but because it's an updo, it might be okay. So this time I'm using Fabri-Tac glue because it's instant drying. So I'm gonna leave the original audio on for a second. I'm listening to Sailormoon Crystal. You remember that pin? That only half came out. The other half just went through my finger. Nice. I have no idea how that pin broke inside, but it's not the first one. So once that's done, I'm making some like pigtail extensions. I'm just using this hair straightener to kind of get that fold in better. This Kanakilon hair is really, really pliable when it's warm. I'm going to put the link down below. Oh, it's eBay though, isn't it? It'll never get anywhere. Once the apocalypse is over, I really recommend this hair. I think it might come from China, but it's so cheap. The delivery is pretty fast normally, and I love the quality. It comes kind of crimped, but if you use a hot straightener, then it gets soft and shiny like this. So I did a lot of fiddling to try and get these space buns the way I wanted. Other people have left them just folded, and I think they look pretty cute, but the wig that I used when I was Sailor Moon had like buns made from short hair, so like it was cut and then twisted around the bun, which I'm trying to do here to kind of make it more circular and to hide the elastics. I don't think it's really necessary, and the buns kind of turned out a little bit too big, but I still think she's absolutely adorable the way she turned out. I'm using PVA glue to stick the hair down. Once the glue in her buns was dried, I curled the lengths of her hair using my straighteners and just Prismacolor pen, because that's what I had on hand. I blushed her body, but only just her chest really, her knees and her hands, because that's all that will be seen. I just popped her in and then sewed up the back of the shirt. I then sewed the sailor collar on and sewed the bow on top of it. Those are literally the last scraps I had of that fabric, like just barely enough. And then I glued her brooch on. Her shoes need those little straps, so I'm stealing Draculaura's dress straps, and then I'm gluing those on with Fabri-Tac glue because it's an instant dryer. And then I'm trimming the ends of those ribbons. So because there's that pencil stuck inside her head, I need to trim the neck peg. And my hairdryer died, so I couldn't heat up her head. I was convinced everything was going to snap, but no problems. And then now for the most terrifying part, because there's not really any going back from here, and I've spent all this time making this doll, so it's trimming her fringe. So first I use my straightener to kind of like make it move downwards a little bit. I still wanted the volume because she does have a big poofy fringe, and then I trimmed off the length from above. I mean, you can see how I'm doing it. I kind of wanted to have a little bit of layers because she does have a big poofy fringe in the anime, but I wanted to have more length than she does in the anime because she's kind of got like a bit of a mullet situation in the anime, which I didn't want. I'm making a doll for a friend, and I was so terrified about cutting her hair that she's been shelved for 7 months, so I don't really have an excuse now. Here I'm straightening again, and while it's cooling, I'm just kind of holding it to where I want it to be. Oh, I love her so much. I just think she's absolutely adorable. Let me know in the comments what you think of her. I'm absolutely in love with her. I think she's my favourite doll so far, probably because I have always wanted a Sailor Moon doll, and then I made her myself and I really liked the way she came out. Like, I could control everything, so I'm super happy with her. I didn't do a huge photo shoot with her because we're not on lockdown, we're in a state of an emergency, which means literally nothing. Like, it's kind of business as usual. Oh, it's awful. People are literally dropping dead in the streets. It's really bad. I'm a key worker, so I'm going to work at my preschool for 10-hour days 3 times a week, and it's tough. Like, I'm so happy I still have a job, and I'm grateful that so far I've not been knocked down with anything, but it really is a struggle. I was in tears in front of the kids on Friday, and like, I really want to be able to make content for everybody that's stuck at home but can't, and then I get frustrated about that as well. I hope you're all staying safe and sane. Like, it's getting long, and I know that it can be really tough, especially if you're totally on your own. Please reach out if you need someone, and please check in on your friends if you have the emotional energy to do so. Let me know in the comments how you're passing your time, or if you've taken up a new hobby, or if you're watching any good TV shows or something. I saw some really good like meme type things saying that you don't have to be doing something productive with your time right now. We're going through an international pandemic, you know, like, it's okay to not be okay. If you need to veg, then you gotta do it, man. Like, look after your brain. So thanks so much for staying all the way till the end, and hopefully I'll have another video for you soon. Not sure when it's going to be, to be honest, but I'd be super happy to see you again. Thanks as always. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, wash your hands, wear masks. Love to you and yours. See you soon. Bye.